You can listen to Football for Kids completely ad-free by signing up on Patreon or on Apple Podcast subscription. You can also link Patreon to your podcast player via Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Without adverts, there is no show. This episode is brought to you by our partners at Everton FC. Do you want to go behind the scenes at Hill Dickinson Stadium and explore the club's brilliant new home on the banks of the River Mersey? Now you can. Everton Stadium tours give fans a chance to step inside the dressing room, see where the manager prepares the squad on match days, follow in the footsteps of their heroes, walk down the tunnel to the sound of Zed cars and emerge pitchside for some unforgettable photo opportunities, including the chance to sit in the manager's dugout. How cool is that? It's a brilliant day out for football fans, families and anyone who loves seeing what happens beyond the touchline. The tours are fully accessible and open to all ages too. If you fancy seeing Everton's new home up close, booking is online only at evertonfc.com/tours. Hello grown-ups. Are you already starting to think about the summer holidays and how to keep the kids busy? Yeah, I thought you might. Today's podcast is brought to you by Kellogg's Football Camps, a brilliant solution for families looking to keep kids active, having fun and building confidence this summer. With camps for girls and boys aged 5 to 15, Kellogg's are offering over 39,000 free places at sessions hosted by over 70 pro football clubs across the UK. From Colchester to Cardiff, Glasgow to London. It's a great chance for kids to get out, to play football and make new friends over the summer break. To book a free place, just buy a promotional Kellogg's Football Camps pack and scan the QR code to choose a club near you. T's and C's apply, subject to availability. To the Football for Kids podcast with me, Darren Rees, and welcome to yet another brand new episode on the world's biggest family sports podcast. So, Mikel Arteta, the first Arsenal manager to win the Premier League since Arsene Wenger 22 years ago in that invincible season. I've done an episode on Arsene Wenger. You can go and check that out if you wish to. I've also done episodes on the Invincible season and many of the players who were a part of it. In this episode, we're going to be talking about Mikel Arteta's journey, from his birth in Spain all the way through his playing career up until winning the title for Arsenal. And may I ask you, if you're not already following the podcast wherever you listen, please do take a couple of seconds to hit that follow button. Right then, Mikel Arteta's story begins in San Sebastian, a beautiful city in the Basque Country in northern Spain. It's a place of beaches, sea air, football pitches and food so good that grown-ups take one bite and suddenly start making noises like they have just seen a rainbow. But Arteta's beginning was not simple and it wasn't full of rainbows. When he was born, he had a serious heart problem, like a real one. Not the kind of heart problem you get when your team misses an open goal. This was serious stuff. Arteta has spoken about needing open heart surgery when he was just 2 years old. Doctors had to wait until he was strong enough for the operation, and afterwards his family were told to be extremely careful of him. It was touch and go stuff. There would be no wild running around like kids do, no physical effort, no charging about like a tiny Spanish rocket with knees, which, as you can imagine, is a bit of a problem when the little boy in question would go on to love football. Because Mikel Arteta did not want to sit still like a museum statue. He wanted the ball, he wanted the grass, he wanted to run, pass, chase, think, compete and probably organise the other children into a 4-3-3 formation. That is the amazing thing about this part of the story, because before Arteta became a clever midfielder, and trust me, he was super clever, and before he played for Everton and played for Arsenal and Rangers, before he became Arsenal's manager, and stood on the touchline waving his arms about like a man trying to guide a confused aeroplane into Heathrow, he was a little boy who had already learned something huge. Football is most definitely not guaranteed. Running isn't either, and neither is a healthy body from the start. So, when he did have the chance to play, it meant everything. For Arteta, football was not just a game. It was freedom, it was energy, it was utter joy. And maybe, just maybe, that's where the manager we know today first began. Not with tactic boards, not with team talks, not with pointing dramatically at Bukayo Saka, but with a heartbeat. As Mikel Arteta grew up, football, as you can imagine, in Spain was everywhere. Not just on proper pitches, not just with nice white lines and referees with whistles, but it was literally everywhere you looked. On the streets of San Sebastian, on the little patches of space where he lived, and, famously, on the beach as well. Because in San Sebastian, there is a beautiful beach which goes by the name of La Concha, which means the shell. It curves around the bay like someone had drawn a giant smile beside the sea. Now, most children go to the beach to build sandcastles. Arteta and his mates went to the beach to build midfielders, because this is where Arteta played football as a boy. Sand under his feet, the sea air in his face, and the sun beaming on his skin. And one of the boys he became close with was a player called Xabi Alonso. You might have heard of him. Yes, the Xabi Alonso who would now become the Chelsea manager, the future Liverpool star, the Real Madrid and Spain midfielder, the future manager, the man who looked like he was born knowing where every pass should go before the ball had even arrived. Arteta and Alonso both came through a local youth club called Antiguoco, a small club with a mighty talent factory hidden inside it. Imagine a tiny football bakery, where instead of bread, they keep producing clever midfielders. That's the kind of place it was. And those early days, those early games mattered. On the beach, on the streets, in those tight little spaces, Arteta learned to think quickly, to move quickly, and my goodness did he have to pass quickly too. Because when you are playing somewhere cramped with sand, stones, bags, jumpers for goalposts, and possibly a small dog trying to join in, you do not get 3 minutes to make a decision. You get 1 second, maybe half a second. That is where Arteta's football brain started to grow. Not in a giant stadium, not under bright lights with roaring crowds, but beside the sea, with friends, a ball, and 1,000 tiny decisions shaping him into the player that we would once know and the manager who we would become to know. Then came a big move. At 15 years old or thereabouts, Mikel Arteta left San Sebastian and headed to Barcelona's famous academy, La Masia. I've, of course, done an episode on La Masia. La Masia was not a holiday camp with orange squash and a bouncy castle. It was serious. Training, learning, discipline, football, football, football. Arteta was suddenly inside one of the most famous football factories in the world, surrounded by brilliant young players and up close to Barcelona's first team full of utter stars. But here is the tricky bit. Barcelona's midfield was packed, and when I say packed, it was properly packed. Getting into that team was like trying to squeeze one more suitcase into a family car before a summer holiday. So Arteta learned, he improved, and he toughened up. But his path to the top would not be simple. Because the thing with life is, and achieving great things, if it was easy, everyone would do it, wouldn't they? La Masia helped him with that. It shaped him, but it would not be the place where he would become a star. With Barcelona's first team packed up tight, Arteta needed somewhere to actually play, not to train or sit on the bench, and in January 2001 he went on loan to PSG. And what a dressing room he walked into. Nicolas Anelka, JJ Okocha, Mauricio Pochettino, and soon Ronaldinho. Imagine being a young midfielder and walking into that lot. It's like joining a school football team and finding out your classmates are wizards. Arteta's debut was rough. PSG went on to lose 4-0 in the French Cup. It wasn't exactly a trumpet fanfare. More like someone dropped a trumpet down the stairs. But Paris mattered. Arteta played senior football. He learnt fast and found himself among huge personalities and serious talent. Barcelona had taught him how to think. PSG taught him how to grow. Then Arteta packed up his suitcase because he was going from Paris to Glasgow. Alright, Paul, how's it going for you? Sorry about the dodgy accent. I just can't help it at times. In 2002, Rangers signed him from Barcelona for approximately £6 million, and suddenly the smooth-talking Spanish midfielder was in Glasgow, where football is not so much a sport, but a weekly earthquake with scarves. And it's definitely the sort of place, unless you're from Glasgow, where you can't really understand the word that anybody's saying. This was tough, fast, noisy football. There was no time for dainty little passes while everyone admires your hair. At Rangers, Arteta had to grow up quickly. And in his first season, Rangers chased the domestic treble, the league, the Scottish Cup and the League Cup. Then came the final day of the league season against Dunfermline. Rangers needed goals. Celtic were breathing down their necks. The title could come down to goal difference. And late on, Arteta stepped up for a penalty. And, of course, he scored. Rangers won 6-1, and that penalty helped them win the league on goal difference. Not bad for a young player learning what British football really felt like in the Glaswegian rain. After Rangers, Arteta went home again. In 2004, he joined Real Sociedad in La Liga, the big club from San Sebastian, the city where he'd grown up, and in his head, this must have felt perfect. Home city, big club, maybe even the chance to play with his childhood friend, Xabi Alonso. Love story, right? Well, football sometimes looks at these lovely stories and says, what if I made this awkward, difficult? What if I didn't give this the fairy tale ending? Before the same summer, Alonso moved to Liverpool. So Arteta came home, but the dream did not quite look in the way that he imagined. He found it hard to settle, it said. He was not playing as much as he wanted to, and after only a very short spell back in Spain, he needed another new adventure. That adventure would take him to Everton in the Premier League. He was back to Britain, and this is where English football properly got to know the man who we know as Mikel Arteta. In January 2005, David Moyes brought Arteta to Goodison Park on loan, and it's said this is where English football really started to fall in love with him. Arteta was clever, he was calm, he was neat on the ball, the kind of midfielder who looked like he had a tiny sat-nav in his boot. Pass here, turn there, make everyone else look better. He helped Everton finish 4th in the Premier League that season, which meant Champions League qualification. For Everton fans, that was huge, massive, the sort of thing that makes grown men hug strangers and pretend they have something in their eye. Everton would then go on to make the move with Arteta permanent that summer, and over the next few years, Arteta became one of the most important players in the squad. He wasn't the loudest, he wasn't the biggest, but he was a conductor. The football went through him. At Goodison Park, Mikel Arteta stopped being a promising player looking for a home. He became a player who found home. Then came Arsenal. In 2011, Arsene Wenger signed Mikel Arteta from Everton for approximately 10 million Great British pounds. And Arsenal did not just see another footballer. They needed a grown-up. They needed someone calm, someone clever, someone who could take the ball when everyone was running around like someone had dropped a wasp into a packed lunchbox. Arteta became that very player. He was not flying past people with rainbow flicks. He was not trying to score from the car park. He was the organiser, the passer, the steady voice in midfield. Later, he became the Arsenal captain. And as captain, he helped the club win the FA Cup in 2014 and again in 2015. For Arsenal fans, these trophies mattered a lot, because after years of waiting, Wembley finally gave them something shiny to talk about again. And as a player, Arteta was not always a superstar, but he was something which every team needed: the brain, the balance and the glue. When Arteta retired as a player in 2016, he did not wander off to the beach with a giant hat and a fizzy drink. Nope, he went straight into coaching. He joined Pep Guardiola at Manchester City, becoming one of his assistants, and that was basically a football university. Pep's Manchester City team were winning, passing, pressing, moving, rotating, confusing everyone, and generally making defenders look like they had accidentally opened the wrong door and walked into a maths exam. Arteta watched, he learned, he helped, and he studied. 3 years later, Arsenal came calling. In December 2019, he returned to North London not as a player, but to become Arsenal's head coach. Former player, a former captain, and now a man asked to fix the whole thing and do one thing. Please, Arteta, just win us the league. Mikel Arteta's start as the Arsenal manager was, well, a bit wild. In 2020, he won the FA Cup. Brilliant, he'd already won it with him as a player. Then, a few months later, Arsenal were struggling badly in the Premier League, and people were asking if he was the right man for the job. Football, honestly, 1 minute you're holding the trophy, the next minute everyone is shouting whether you're the right person or not. But Arteta kept building. He changed the squad, he changed the mood, he trusted young players like Bukayo Saka, he added leaders like Declan Rice, and slowly Arsenal became serious again, properly serious. And then came the very season of 2025-26. After years of chasing, falling short, and watching Manchester City run off with shiny things, Arsenal finally did it. They won the Premier League, their first league title since 2004. 22 years had passed. That is longer than almost all of you have been alive, unless you are secretly a very small accountant. For Arteta, it was huge. The former Arsenal captain had returned as the manager and brought the crown back to North London. And that is the unbelievable Mikel Arteta story. A little boy from San Sebastian who had open heart surgery when he was just tiny. A kid who learned football on the beaches and on the streets. A teenager who was shaped gently by La Masia. A midfielder who found home at Everton and at Arsenal. A coach who studied under Pep Guardiola. And then finally, the man who would rebuild Arsenal and win them the league. And that brings this episode to an end. So remember, if you know someone who loves football just as much as you do, then please tell them about the Football for Kids podcast. And whether you're playing football soon, watching it on the telly or pitchside, I hope that you enjoy the game. See you next time.